Well, this is Channel Africa, the African Perspective, broadcasting live from Johannesburg in South Africa. I am Tlandla Mahlangu, standing in for Tshepiso Makwetla. Former Kenyan President Raila Odinga, affectionately known as Baba, has died at the age of 80. Reports indicate that he collapsed during a morning walk in Kochi, India, where he was undergoing medical treatment and was pronounced dead after efforts to revive him failed. We now cross to our correspondent in Kenya, Daniel Ominde, to paint a picture for us. Daniel, good evening, and thank you so much for taking your time and joining us on Africa World Hour.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Daniel, can you just tell us about the reaction of the people of Kenya to the passing of Mr. Raila Odinga?
Well, news about the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga started trickling in the morning through social media platforms, and eventually some of the major news networks locally broke the news before the formal announcement later on in the afternoon. Following the breaking of the news on local media, Kenyans in many parts of the country went into the streets, wailing, and of course it was received with a lot of shock. There were reports last week that he was unwell, started as rumors as well. Reports which sections of his family initially denied before some members of the family confirming that yes, he was indeed unwell and in India. So today it came as a shocker because most of the people in the country were not aware about, or rather were not aware of the severity of whatever was of his condition that he was seeking treatment for in India. And it was met with a lot of sadness. We've seen a lot of condolence messages coming in from ordinary members of the Kenyan public, as well as dignitaries and leaders in various cadres of government, including the former president Uhuru Kenyatta, who sent in a very passionate message of condolence to his family, referring to the loss as a deep personal loss because of the personal friendship that he shared with Raila Odinga over the last 5 years of his tenure as presidency, and also being his preferred candidate as a successor in the last elections. But across the country, in the western part of the country, where Raila's stronghold is, political bastion is, if you might call it that, and also which also is where he comes from, the cities of Kisumu, and even in the closer county of Siaya, which is where his home is. The news was met by a lot of shock. People went out in the streets in large numbers, in their hundreds and thousands, just mourning the passing of these great politicians, many people refer to as Baba.
And has there been any communication by the government of President Ruto to the announcement of the passing?
Yes, the president had a press conference just a few minutes after 1 p.m. today, where he made an announcement that yes, indeed, he was the prime minister had passed. He was flanked by the former prime minister's elder brother, Mr. Honorable Odinga. Who also serves as a senator in the current Senate. And during that announcement, the president mentioned that that the late Raila Odinga was going to be accorded all the military honors as the funeral is going to unfold. Today in the evening, we've had another announcement or statement given by the Deputy President, Honorable Kithure Kindiki, His Excellency. And during that briefing that happened just around 7:30 p.m. Central Africa time, he mentioned the plans for the funeral and the burial. This evening, a Kenya Airways flight was dispatched from Nairobi to India to repatriate the body of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga back to the country. The body is expected to arrive here in Nairobi at 7:30 a.m. Central Africa time, 8:30 a.m. local time here in Nairobi. After which it will be escorted to a funeral home here in Nairobi, and then mid-afternoon, 12:30, early afternoon, 12:30 p.m. here in Nairobi time. That's 11:30 p.m. in your South African time or Central Africa time. his body will be moved from the funeral home to Parliament for viewing that will happen across the day until around 5 p.m. On Friday, the day after tomorrow, there will be a public funeral expected to be attended by dignitaries and heads of state from around the world and including around the continent. And then on Saturday, the body will be flown again to Kisumu. That's in Western Kenya, where his support base is. And there will be another whole day of viewing before his body is moved to his rural home for an overnight stay. And then on Sunday, there will be the final funeral program and burial that will be conducted at his home in Siaya County.
And Daniel, he leaves behind a party. Talk to us about the support he enjoyed there. And do you see the party surviving his sudden death? Or do you not see splits coming as a result of his absence?
Well, the former prime minister has had a very illustrious career in politics. He's led different parties. Previously, he comes from a political dynasty. His father was the first vice president of the Republic of Kenya, and then before moving to become a very formidable opposition politician, just like the former prime minister was for most of his political life. When his father died, there was a sort of a leadership vacuum in the party, which was one of the foremost multi-party or opposition parties in Kenya, the Forum for Restoration of Democracy, popularly known just here in Kenya as Ford Kenya. And there was a split that happened in the parties at that particular point because one faction was led by somebody else, and Raila Odinga wanted to lead the party forward. So during that split, he formed a new party called the Liberal Development Party, LDP, which again later on folded, and he formed the National Democratic Party, and that folded eventually as well after a merger with KANU, and then in 2002, he was part of the coalition that was called the NAC coalition that got KANU out of power where he stayed until 2005 when he parted ways with the former president Mwai Kibaki to form the current party, the Orange Democratic Movement. Now, within the Orange Democratic Movement, he's led the party for what would say like close to 3 decades now at the helm. 2 decades now at the helm of that party. And the party has had a strong following of him. It has always been said that Raila is ODM and ODM is Raila. So he was the party leader. His word in ODM was like law. He was feared by both the politicians who subscribed to the party, but also and he also had a very strong base of supporters and loyalists. He was one of the politicians who was said to sort of like command power that could be comparable to executive power, but outside of the formal executive system. And that just shows you just how popular he was as a politician, how solid his political base was, and the political base for ODM spread beyond the Western Kenya region where Mr. Raila Odinga came from. The coastal region of the country, the far end of the country, was a strong, solid base for him. Nairobi, the capital of the country, was also another solid base for him. So I think, so right now, I think that the vacuum that is left is being filled. Of course, there are pockets of conversations around where does the party go from here? What is succession going to look like for the party? But I think it's still too early to tell how that is going to play.
And just before I let you go, Daniel, let's talk about his endorsement to run for the AU Commission chair, of which we all know by now that he failed to get. Did this deter him in any way, in your view?
Well, it didn't deter him. I think he was at a point where he was trying to find a way out of the competitive politics in Kenya and more of move into the direction of becoming an African statesman, a direction that that many other leaders from across the continent have followed. even those who did not get opportunities to lead their own countries, and because of also his advanced age, that was the direction that he was following. And of course, there were a lot of hopes from the country, and especially his support base, that he was going to clinch that role and then create room in the current political space. And that was specifically important for the current administration because Raila, the politician and the master political strategist that he was, he was like a threat or it was like a thorn on the flesh of the government, and he's been to be fair to him to the past administration as well. So the current administration saw it fit that if they supported him to get that position, then it would be easier sailing through the 5 years of this current administration, and also possibly another 5-year term for the president. So getting him out of the local competitive politics. That did not, however, wane his support base. I think after failing for that, he had even left the party leadership for other people to hold the positions on an acting role. But he managed to come back and take up his role as the party leader and play it effectively. Last year, he was very crucial in supporting President Ruto during the Gen Z protests, as the country was revolting, so to speak, against the current administration.
We'll leave it there, Daniel. Thank you so much for taking your time and talking to us on Africa World Hour.